Rob, you want me to give me the transfer? Let's see everything I have. I do have a little bit less the last 2 days.
Just create a folder.
Just create a folder.
Just call it.
Yeah, space. Tell me when it's done.
Yeah.
Put some stuff on first.
Cool. Weekend. What is the English line?
It's
The live server.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then go into texture.
Oh.
So
Resource or?
yeah, resource, texture, and reference. 3D.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
All right, I'll show that head thing again, and then we'll do the ear, and then we can do some work, and then 2:30 or so, we'll do UVs on the head, or J head. Okay, so I have the face path of the eye. It's in the loop. But for lips and eyes, we want the over lip or over eyelid to flow over the under eyelid. So the under lip or eyelid wants to go in and under the upper part so that you get good definition. So all I'm going to do is reroute edges. Again, this can be used for like sports cars and headlights and different kind of transitions. I'm just adding an edge and then rerouting that edge or face path so it's not directly there, but it's going to come up underneath and support that. So I'm just changing the flow of an edge. So first thing what I want to do is add a new edge underneath. So I'm going to select and add my edge underneath. So there's my new edge. So now what I want to do is I want to move this lower eyelid back around so it goes underneath the upper eyelid. So I'm going to take the first edge on the inside of the lower eyelid and delete it. Then use my split polygon tool to redraw it to the new edge that I added. Next thing I'm going to do is delete the outer edge of the eyelid. And redraw that to the inner edge of the upper eyelid. That'll leave the upper edge free. So I have this edge loop open. Now what I want to do is the same thing on the opposite side. Just reroute it to that new edge that I drew. And I can draw it, then delete it. That leaves two open edges now, which is here. This one I have the flow going in a little bit different direction, because ideally I want to bring the flow this way. But I can now come in, split this. And bring that back up and around like so. So now when I select this loop, I've rerouted that edge to the underneath. So that now allows me, when I add a few more edges, I would add actually naturally another edge there, but it allows me to get that eyelid crease coming in this direction. So it's going to take a little more work. I have that flow going how I like it, but I still want to flow this edge here. So I can delete that. And I'm going a little further than I did before, I think. So I'm going to just start bringing that through, which I may want to go ahead and add a few edges. And this is got fairly squished when I was doing stuff, so I have to open it up a little bit. So that's going to allow me to bring that up and underneath. I can redraw this stuff. If I hit 3, we're starting to get that crease in. So now if I start taking this stuff and readjusting it, now getting the proper long crease of my nose. If I want to do a tear duct with a furunculum, I can start adding that in by doing an extrude. This is stuff I would do a little bit later after I have my head fully blocked out.
So you're going to end up with some time, right?
Very possibly. And that's okay. And if you need to do an all-quadrant mesh, you'll work them out. Except if you have only one triangle, you're screwed. You can't resolve it. Now I can start playing with, these spaces, matching with the eye. Again, one more time, you know, if we want an eye crease in there, any kind of crease really, we can use triangles to enhance that. So I can just bring this back up through here. Create five-sider. Delete. Draw a new edge. Pull it in. And I now have the crease of the eyelid. Probably want to get a little bit, you know, more even and thicker on the, you know, the area where the eyelashes attach. Here. I want to rework this stuff a little bit so that it's nice and gives me a nice little shelf in low polygon. Instead of, you know, smoothing, it's okay, but I want to get this tight so I have a nice little shelf for the eyelashes. Again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be grabbing this section, or at least this loop and that loop to put eyelashes on. What I'm also going to do is when I'm rendering and stuff, I'm going to want to extract those extra faces and make them transparent so I get a little extra reflection for my eye and make it watery. So you need a nice face path around that area where you can just look at your eye in the mirror where it starts getting wet. I want that edge loop so when I put eyeballs in, I have a clear piece of transparent stuff that's really reflective and gives that nice wet look bouncing off the eye. That's how they get it really wet, is that refraction and reflection in their wetness. So if you don't have a good edge loop there, I mean, you can always trace it on the model as a new patch. Maybe we made it live. We can always redraw that area just for that piece in the tear duct. In the tear duct, you might want to maybe color the eye.
What do you mean? Transparent?
Yeah, well, what happens when you have an eyeball? Let me open the old file.
What do you mean transparent?
1 second. Once you have an eyeball in there, and we're going to have to go and match. So technically, here's kind of where the wetness starts, right? In the eye. What you're going to end up doing when you start doing more high quality render type stuff is we're going to take these faces here, and because we'll have like a red texture where the tissue's red, right? You can do an edit mesh, duplicate face. That's one reason why, you know, if your edge path's good, you get it for free. If not, you're going to have to make it live and redraw this piece correctly. So I'll probably take something like this, go like that, and I'll put a shader on it, whether it's an MIA or a blend, highly reflective material, but I'll make it transparent so that it's a separate piece with transparency, so I can put really hot reflection on it and bump to make it look wet. And you won't see it. And that reflection is going to bounce off the eye and give an extra bit of wet feeling to the skin underneath. Because I'll be using a subsurface scattering shader on the skin, and I really don't want to mess around with, you know, just trying reflection in that area. I mean, I definitely will have the specularity on there, but it just helps having little extra pieces of wetness on top to add to the realism of it. And it also, I can take that separate piece, and because it doesn't have subsurface on it, I can tell it to cast a shadow into the eye as well. And that shadow will emulate the shadow of the eye. Because a lot of times when you have an eye or skin with subsurface, you lose shadow. Or you're not going to get enough shadow. So I can also tell that to give shadow from the upper eyelid to the lower eyelid. From the upper eyelid to the eyeball itself. And so then that'll add more to the realism as well. But little cheats, because, you know, a lot of times you don't do all in one stuff. You know, you have to do little cheats to make things look and feel proper. So that's something that we do all the time. So having a nice clean edge path around your eye, and I'm guilty of being a little messy. If you go into ZBrush and take this and sculpt it, as soon as you hit smooth, your mesh starts falling apart. So you never want to sculpt on a mesh that you built initially, because you're losing your highs and lows. It's like relaxing it. Your silhouette's gone, the edge is gone. So what you want to do is, if you are going to sculpt on your level this head, you import your head into ZBrush, sculpt on it, bring it back to level 1, and re-import the base head so your initial form pops back. There's a point to poly modeling. It's getting level 20. As soon as you start smoothing that, the planes go away. And ZBrush does this to your mesh. Things are no longer in line like your eye. They will be at high res, but at low res, they're gone. And we're using displacement maps, so we need the quality of our low res, so that's very important. So let's tackle the ear. I'm liking this one. I may go finish it at home. It'll be fun. Never have enough heads laying around.
It would be a good idea to kind of like use it for library to just like eyes and noses and mouths and just put them together from different places. Ears. You just like to like drag them, make them fit to whatever things that you want to do.
As a student,
The library.
yes. As a student, though, no.
No.
As a student, you should build anew every single time just to get the experience of doing it and learning and growing and understanding, and developing your craft. As a professional, well, I call it kit bashing. Kit bashing? Like you have a little kit full of noses and stuff. I wouldn't bash a nose, but yeah, definitely like if you make an ear, nobody's gonna notice maybe it's not that ear. It might take you some time. Eyeballs, definitely. The thing is, with the people and the scale of the eyes, the size of the iris may change. That's kind of easy to fix, but once you make one good eyeball, an eyeball shader, you can put it in your little briefcase and hard drive and take it wherever you go. So there are instances where, yes, I mean, if I have a freelance job, I've done so many characters in my career that I have so many parts laying around that I can literally give you a character in 5 days complete, if I need to, because I can bash. Now, then again, I mean, you're always developing paradigms for like base meshes, because your meshes aren't always going to be the same when you research, especially for a game. It's all there's no way you can kit bash this. Your initial high res, yeah, you can do that initially for some things. But when I build my low res meshes for sculpting, I always have 8 rings. So I can take any leg from any monster, any character, and know it'll hook up to here because it's all 8. My final mesh is all done by hand and redone. But my initial start can be very fast by kit bashing. But and the danger of kind of creating one base mesh and saying that's your base mesh, the perfect example is I had a student, he was a good sculptor, but he was lazy and didn't want to make a character from beginning to end each time. So he wanted to use the same base mesh. So he did. He did a female, a muscle guy, and a kid. Well, it looked like a female, a muscle guy, and a kid, but they all looked the same. Because he didn't change really proportion much, really gesture. I could tell it's the same base mesh. Same position, everything. Just, it looked different. And that made all his work look kind of like, eh. So we really, you don't want to get in the paradigm of like using the same base mesh over and over, because proportion and gesture is dependent in weight and balance when you're sitting on the ground with the character. As opposed to someone like this, there's different little things you can do to make that character really kind of pop and hold some character in a neutral pose, which is tough to do. Using the same base mesh over and over is a bad thing. But as a student, if you're learning, I highly encourage you to build it separately every single time. Once you get really, really comfortable, or start working, then by all means, especially with freelance, time is money, money is time. So it's a necessity. So let's start on the ear. Ears look hard, but they're fairly easy. Now I'm going to pause the demo. Now that I said that, it's going to have problems. But technically, they're really easy. The only issue with them is they're time consuming. Because we're going to be doing extruding, so it comes out square, and we have to get round shapes out of it. And we have to keep the topology really low. Now, the issue with the ear, we'll talk a little bit about, is when you try to hook it to the head, because innately the ear is round and curvy, so you're going to have more edges to it, and so connecting it to the head, you don't want to bring all the edges across. We'll talk about that a little bit. So initial ear shape, we can think of 3 shapes, and then we have an ear. So the first shape is going to be like a cursive 9, right? Something like that. Second shape, that's the helix. The anti-helix is like a Y. Third shape is like, I don't know what the shape is, like backward D, something like that. I mean, I could draw it a little better. We have a little hole in there. That's an ear. Very, very simple to lay that topology out on the plane and start extruding it out.
What's the last name?
This shape?
Yeah.
Like a backward D. So 9, OI, and E. Very, very, very simple. Now the problem is that because this is round and it has so many edges, you don't want to carry, if that's the back of the head, you don't want to carry all these edges, that's crazy all the way back, because now you're creating little dimples and it's weird and you can't really adjust the cranial shape. So that's bad. So what we're going to end up doing is starting to tie stuff off behind the ear. I've never seen behind the ear commercial before, so it's a good place to tie off crap. Okay? Now, the problem comes in is here, tying it off here. We definitely know, because we're going to have, a flow of our head, and we're going to only have, before we smooth it about, a certain amount of connection. So we're going to have to start tying things off back into curvature. We just don't want to get too many lines right here, because when we take it into ZBrush or an editing program, this could turn into 40,000 polygons and start pinching and give you a weird plane. You'll never get it out. It's really bad. So the challenge is kind of like how to tie it off there. And we can still try it off into, little kite-shaped things. That's fine. We just don't want the vertical stuff to get too dense and heavy, so we can start tying it off behind this area and behind here. That's the crux of it. I think all too often students try to bring all this stuff back across into the face. Not a good idea. And now you're disrupting all the flow of the zygomatic area where the eye comes out. So I think you might struggle with that a little bit, but good. You'll kind of learn it that there's no harm in tying stuff off. And don't worry about triangles at this point. Once you become familiar with the tools that you're talking about, you'll be able to get them out. It'll magically happen. You'll be like, oh, okay. The thing is, when you start learning how to reroute edge paths, try to fix them, but don't spend more than like 20, 30 minutes. If you can't get it out, then you're just wasting your time. You're going in circles. That just means you're not familiar enough with modeling. And you will get there. And it will magically happen. So that's in here. So let's start modeling one. And again, I'm going to model it. It's going to be very, very square. But we'll get the rough shape of it. It may take an hour to get the form right. I'll go to my Create Polygon tool. And I'm just going to trace out the form of the ear. Ears are dead giveaways for bad CG, if you're doing more photoreal type stuff. Less so with ZBrush these days, but still with displacement map. So you need to have enough curvature to hold the form and the roundness of the ear. On most game characters, it's like one extrude and this is a flat plane. There's no amount. And we just tie off all the triangles right there. Because you don't need all that. It takes so much topology to create in here that it's a waste of topology. So if you're doing game stuff, you would just have normal map in there from the sculpted ear. And you just have one extrude in the main shape, and that would be a flat plane pretty much in there. So now that I have the shape of the ear, and you can see her ear indents really far. Most people don't do that in normal. It'll carry up across through here. So that'll be a little more challenge. But don't, if the character you pick has really, they're a freak, then you're going to want to, find another ear that's more conventional and just put that ear on there. So I'm going to go, let me make sure that my normals are flipped. I'll go to my split polygon tool. laying edges across the form really quick. So now I'm going to start cutting. So one thing we can do if you want to see the vertices on a plane, if you haven't already experimented and figured that out, we can go to Polygon, display vertices. So the vertices will always be visible. I may have gone a little too heavy on the ear already. I might have wanted to start a little lighter, but you know. Let me spread some of this out just a little bit.
What do you mean when you say you got a little heavy?
Too much topology?
Oh, okay.
We'll see. I can always delete it. Not a big deal. You see how I'm following the form? Here, I'm definitely going to want to now I'm going to finish off the 9 there. Let me reorganize this a little bit. Delete that, bring that there. Then you have to look at the ear like hers. It has a little bit lobey. It's not fully connected. There's a little bit. But you know, ears are fascinating things. How many of you have really, really looked at an ear? You know, we take ears for granted. So go read about an ear. I could do just here to here for now. And knowing that this is probably too many, because my head is, I think I only have 3 right now. But when I upres the head too, I may have a couple more I can put in there, but I may end up going in and collapsing some of this stuff. But I'll find that out once I go to fix it. So now I have a quad. I just accidentally found the unique cylinder hotkey. Yay, there it is. Look at that. Just want to get an even spread. This one I can probably get away with collapsing. All right. Now I'm going to start my Y shape. I may want to go and see if I can't collect that. And start just reworking it a little bit. Yeah, I don't want to get too dense. That's going to lead to problems. Just always low and slow. And you'll kind of figure out when you need to start up-resing. If you add an edge, you got to start moving edges, spacing them out. So I'll finish off this little Y here. Oops. And then I can kind of see that that's tapering off. So I can either bring it all the way down and just end in a triangle there, or I could try it off here. It's going to depend on the ear and the person. But for the most part, besides this stuff here, we're almost there. Bring that to there. You don't want to bring that to there for now. Bring that to there. So I have a 5-sider and a 5-sider. Just work out the shape there and figure out where I want it to live. I want to make sure I keep my form, so we have that going there. I have a triangle here. So if I delete that, delete that. I can now use that to my advantage. And maybe split that there. Like that. And really bring that up to there. Now start spacing stuff out a little bit. Again, that's kind of going along with that form a little bit. I mean, I could probably, afford to rework it, maybe slide this piece up, this form up a little back over that way. But let's say that's good. Again, I think I went a tiny bit too dense on it. So there's our initial ear. So in this area here, I'm going to delete these edges really quick. I'm going to offset extrude. So I get a little loop for that depression in the Y there. And I'll have to figure out how to re-resolve that. Again, try to do it a slight bit lighter. That's more appetizing. Okay. So now let me grab this face, select everything. I'm going to deselect the area with the hole. Let me save. I'll do an extrude. Pull that out a little bit. Sorry, I'm going to grab that. Actually, let me grab it here, the hole. And I'll extrude this back. Pull the canal forward. I could average those vertices and select it. Soften it up a little bit. Now I'm going to go in to this area and select all this juicy stuff. We'll do another extrude. Something like that. I'm going to grab this stuff. Oops. Forgot to grab that. Or I don't want to grab that, sorry. I'm going to just manually select this stuff. Don't want the edge coming up. Set my hole over that edge. There we go. Extrude. Don't want this now. Do it again. I can now grab this edge. Maybe collapse it. Means I can grab this edge here. Bring it out a little bit. Right here wants to be collapsed. I definitely want to hook this part to the face. So I'm going to go in and probably delete these edges. Or collapse them. I can collapse this. Probably collapse it a little higher. There we go.
Triangles create any weird deformation?
Well, I mean, if you put a triangle in the middle of a bicep and it needs to deform, yes. You put a triangle here, where the crease is, it's aiding in the crease of that crease.
Right.
So you never want to have a configuration of topology, unless it's a flat surface, then you don't see anything, so that's fine. You never want any kind of stuff like this, you know, or things like starring out. like that, a bunch of polygons, in areas that are going to bulge and deform. You want to keep those areas very linear. Now, if you're doing something like an elbow here, you're going to have compression here and a bulging there. So the philosophy behind animation for edge loops in that regard is kind of like this. If you think about that, it's going to go tight to wide. So, you know, when you have a leg, it's going to be the same thing, tight to wide. So when it compresses, it's nice, and then it keeps the bulge. If it's too even, then it's going to be, the transitions are going to be weird.
So when you see people modeling like breasts, for example, if they do that thing where the image does come to a point that's wrong.
I really detest that flow of topology.
Right.
If you take a character class, I'll rant on this. One thing is, for the amount of time guy nerds think and look at and think about boobs, they cannot make them. They don't understand that there's a pectoral and a rib cage underneath. So when I'm modeling something like a breast, I definitely prefer to have, you know, the rib cage coming under the delt and it lined up because there's a pectoral under there. And then that'll follow the flow of the tissue. And then I'll counterflow it down this way. So I'll have configuration like this. I don't ever want to have that start point, you know, they put in the nipple area. I don't want to have that start point there because if you start sculpting on it, it's whenever you have something like the top of the sphere with all those points, I call that a cat's butt. Because if you start sculpting on it, that little pin in me starts coming in and it starts creating that star pattern. So that's why it's bad. It's done a lot. And the other thing is when you use a sphere for a breast, when you start sculpting on it, it's so concentric that things get all tight and smushed and then you can't really sculpt on it. And if you lose the shape, it's gone.
Right.
So it's a little harder to obtain that shape, but it's better for deformation and topology because it's following the flow. You kind of think it as an underwire on a bra for support. That pectoral muscle I always think of like as a piece of steak, and it'll have two edges to define it so that it can run and flow underneath the pectoral. So when you're pulling, it does this movement and pulls it up. A sphere right there is not going to do that.
Right.
So that's why I prefer to not do that. Not to say, I mean, it's done all the time. So it's not to say that technically it's bad. Because you might have another teacher, they're going to say, oh, do this. You know, and it's just from my experience. And it's from my experience dealing with the riggers who preferred that topology one way. And it actually has that flow and counterflow of the form. Of course, it's like a chin or a nose or a butt. You're going to need a little more topology to define that form. And you may need a little more topology so when you UV it, that those UVs don't, you know, naturally because it's bigger and rounder and has less topology, it's going to want to open up more likely than, you know, if it was a little denser.
Right.
So you can run into topology issues that way. I mean, UV issues that way.
So I think I use triangles here because this will ultimately be smoothed, and that'll just be quad anymore.
If that's the case, if we're going to definitely smooth it, yeah. But we may not. But you know, I don't want you to worry about triangles. You know, until you get a client that says no triangles, then worry about it. Think about getting them out a little bit. Try it, work out. But once you do it really well, it's going to automatically